the Mortician, and I'm just getting this live set up here so that I can comment and chat with you guys. So welcome. So in this live video, I answer questions that you throw at me live, but the reason I hadn't planned on even doing, but then I started looking through my file that I keep questions for live and realized, oh, I have a lot of questions piling up. So we're going to dive into some online questions that I have received in emails, and I'll get through as many as I can. But yeah, welcome guys, and really happy to have y'all here. Hey Leo and Dana and everybody. I am supposed to be in Baltimore right now at the National Funeral Directors Association, and I'm not. It's actually still here in Michigan, and got kind of sidelined by my doctor because I got a concussion a couple weeks ago, and I'm still having some issues from it, and they said they don't want me traveling, so I had to cancel. I'm really, really bummed about it. There's a lot of people I was excited to meet in person, like John Hill and Melissa, who is the modern mortician, and but that will have to wait for another time. So wanted to dive in here. So Shelly asked, I have prepaid for my funeral and was lying in bed this morning. Think about it. I live in a small town with one funeral home and one funeral director. He's at retirement age. I know my family will be able to use the prepaid plan for me at another facility. Or will I be able to transfer it to another funeral director if someone should buy out the business in my town? How does the funeral director make money from a prepaid funeral agreement if they're no longer in the business? Does the funeral director get reimbursed in a small amount from the insurance company at the time the plan is set up, so there is some compensation then? It can't be profitable for a funeral director who is close to retiring to set up prepaid plans. Everybody say that out loud and see if you can do it, because I can't. Prepaid plans. What this about permission or freeze drying the dead? I'm not sure where you're asking, Ian. Paul, well, thank you. I'm going to pass on the marriage proposal, but that is very nice of you. So here's how prepaid funerals work. You are either going to invest your money in a trust or an insurance policy. So trusts, you have to pay in full for the contract price to be locked in. Insurance policies, you're going to make payments on it over time, just like any insurance, where once you've paid enough, it'll then be considered paid in full and will pay out the full amount upon your death. These are tied to a contract at a specific funeral home. The guarantee is with that funeral home. That money is always yours, though. You can cash it in any time unless you've made it irrevocable. So if you want to use a different funeral home, by all means, go use a different funeral home. That is your money to use where you want. You do not get that locked in guarantee, though. You get the funds, but you don't get the guarantee at another funeral home. Now, why would a funeral home do this if they're getting ready to sell or close? This is still an asset to the funeral home. So when someone sells a funeral home, the amount that you have invested in pre-need is a value of that funeral home for selling it. So let's say I'm going to sell to somebody else. Part of the valuation is how much pre-funding do you have, which is, it's not guaranteed that they're going to use you, but a percentage of that is going to be guaranteed and is going to come through that funeral home at some point. So it is essentially monies that will come through when the time of death comes for these people that have their files on file there. That's essentially what that means. It's like a customer database that you're selling with the funeral home. Does that make sense? So you want to raise that valuation. You want to have money in there. So you're not going to stop writing pre-needs because you still want to serve your community. And that's how you make money off it. Hopefully the interest in there raises enough so when the time of death comes, it will cover the costs that have increased from the pre-planning. There's a lot when it comes to financials, and financials is a hard thing to cover. in depth because lots of people have lots of questions. Not sure when another Naughty Cereals video will be coming. It's on the list, but I have like 300 videos on the list. So, is the head of a dead person embalmed separately, and how's it done? Typically embalmed with the rest of the body. You may do what's called a restricted cervical, where both sides of the neck are open, or both, vessels on each side of the neck, so you can control what goes on in the head separate. A friend of mine committed suicide. He put a gun in his mouth. The family didn't do an open casket. If they did, and the back half of the head is gone, how do you keep it from leaking all over the place? Well, it really depends what kind of weapon they used. Was it a rifle? Was it a handgun? There may just be a small bullet wound, but it can swell the face. We can work with that. If it's a rifle and the head is in a whole bunch of pieces, possibly can do restoration. Yes, can take a lot more work if that skull is in a dozen or more pieces, but it's possible. So it just depends what you have, but you can easily cover, fill, put things over the holes. Typically, some of the stuff is all still there. You just have to do a lot of suturing and everything. Just like any leaking, we can use absorbent powders, we can use absorbent pads, we can use, masking things like hats and stuff as well. In-depth permission is where they get the body out, coffin, freeze it, and I honestly don't know. The word permission I think that's the wrong word that you're using. It doesn't make any sense. My brother passed 2 months ago from a heart attack. When they took us into his, from seeing him, the breathing tube was still in, and we asked why, and they said the medical examiner had to take it. Yeah, unless there's laws or something in your place that I don't know about. There are certain rules that say the medical personnel has to take everything out. If he was under investigation and going for a autopsy, then yes, the medical examiner is going to want to remove that to check everything. So I don't know fully what that whole, your whole scenario is. What do you think is a useless mortuary tool? Didn't I answer it in the video? Drain tubes, I don't really use. Bone separator, I think, is kind of silly. There's a lot of like instruments, not so much tools, but there's instruments that I never use at all. I would have to go in a prep room and pull kind of all the parts out that I don't need or haven't used. If someone dies and they have not been admitted into the hospital for 48 hours, they do need to be reported to the medical examiner for them to look into it. Do we deal with cryonics? We would call a cryonics facility and company to help. Just like a donor to maybe a medical school, we would facilitate the transport and file the death certificate and get it all connected, all the dots connected, and get the person there. Do funeral homes charge more for a difficult reconstruction or embalming? Some funeral homes do have an autopsy or body, like a tissue donation charge. They will charge more for the embalming. This is, as long as it's on the general price list, this is all legal. They can charge whatever they want. You agree to it or you decline. They can also charge for extensive restoration by the hour. Some restorations can take 30 plus hours. So it just depends on what they're walking into and what the discussion is up front. So it's not a blanketed, like at the end, you're going to just have this huge charge that you did not agree to or know about going in. If you or yourself are working or someone working with you passes on, does the company you work for give your family any type of discount because you worked for them, or a discount to your family member if one of them passes? I would say most funeral homes I've ever worked for does do some kind of like employee discount, or does a discount if it's an immediate family member. They may, if it's extended family or something, may throw in, no wholesale cost on maybe merchandise, or gives you printed material at no cost, or a video, or some kind of a little gift, I guess you would say, something for you and your family. I was reading the Australia incidents with putting the wrong body in the casket and still having to proceed with the funeral. We talked about that a couple weeks ago on a live. My question is, do any of the funeral homes require a second person to verify that the right body is in the casket? And is there a person that has to check the deceased once everything has been completed and before the deceased gets placed in the casket? No, not usually, because you're going to work in a facility that has one director sometimes, and they're literally the only person. And how do you determine it's the right person if you're going off a picture? I honestly have had several people that looked nothing like their photo, to the point that I held my breath during the first view because I thought it wasn't the right person. Like, I even told the family I had, like, are you sure? And they said yes. Their visual had changed so much about their body while they were in the hospital or during their illness that they didn't look like any of the pictures. So that can happen where we can't visually identify the person. All we can go by is, the paperwork from the hospital, or, from the home, or identification tags. So there's nothing that you have to do that. I fully agree with funeral homes requiring someone to identify a person prior to cremation. Burial can be undone. We can bring somebody up and disinter, but you can't reverse a cremation. It's a non-reversible process there. So having some identification from a family member or someone to verify that who you have in your care is indeed that person, that I think is 100% something that should happen, because we get people from hospitals, medical examiners, all sorts of facilities where the family's not there when we go. Family never sees the person prior to cremation. How can we 100% know that was truly the person going through the process unless we have the family identify them? I think it's a really great thing to put into the protocols. Let me go over to your questions. What is my view on alkaline hydrolysis? It is probably one of my favorite disposition choices because it leaves the most minimal footprint of widely recognized dispositions right now. Composting is kind of second as well, but the large facilities and stuff with the composting and the energy use in it is also going to leave a footprint too. So yes, Linda. So Linda's saying that she got a nice urn for her dad because he was a veteran. A lot of places will do veterans discounts, veteran spouse discount, service member, like police officer, active duty death type discounts as well. And so those may be built in there. Quinn says, my sister was African American, but a very lighter skin complexion. It was a total of 3 weeks until her funeral. When we viewed her body, she was dark skinned and old. She was 28. Is that normal? I would need to see visuals of what's going on to really give you an idea. And I don't know, how did she die? What did she die of? Was she at the medical examiner? Was she refrigerated? Did she die face down? Was she on a respirator for a long time? Like, there's a lot to that question I need to know before I can really kind of look into it or give you a feedback. Hey, Tara. Do you know of anyone in the industry that only handles natural death situations and doesn't provide services for extreme cases? No. I don't know anybody who would turn someone away because they died in a car accident. That doesn't seem very kind or compassionate. It's a very skewed funeral home. My stepfather recently passed away and his fingernails look dirty to my grandma. I know the family who owns a funeral home. They are world-class human beings and professionals. To me, it was discoloration since he passed on Saturday night and wasn't embalmed until Monday because of our indecisiveness. He was sick and bloated. They couldn't stop some leaking. So their options were very limited from my family's requests because we asked them not to cover the holes, not to use glue. Yeah, so the nails, I mean, you can see dirt under nails, but sometimes when they do discolor and turn dark, fingers dehydrate really fast and they can get really dark very quickly. So it depends cause of death too, how fast the fingers may dehydrate, turn dark, things like that. You would not go in to, I'm trying to think of a good analogy. You know, do you go into a restaurant and tell them exactly how to cook? Hi, I really don't want you to cook the rice before the meat, so you really need to do it this way. I understand that some families don't want specific things used, but embalming and viewing is a presentation. Allow us to use what we need to give you the best presentation. We're being ethical. We're not doing things that are naughty or wrong, but sometimes you have to just trust the process and allow us to do the process. And if the body's leaking all over the place, do you want us to lay out your loved one in a way that we can't control what's going on? And so you could have spots poking out of, you know, that start seeping through on clothing during viewing or things happening, or do you want us to do what we can do to control? Same with a natural burial, same with a viewing without embalming, same with anything. I'm not just saying with embalming. Allow the professionals to do what they do instead of going in to try and dictate what you want them to do for the body work. Just talking about the body work. If you don't want the mouth sewn closed, okay, we're going to have to use something to prop or a band around the head or something. It's feasible, but we're going to have to use another option. So it's one of those things. Okay, you don't want XYZ, but you're telling me I also can't use A, B, or C. How do you want me to control it? Because it's Mother Nature, that mouth is going to come open. So, kind of as an example for you, I guess. Had a friend that died suddenly. No one can figure out how. She was at the coroner's office for 2 weeks. When we had a private burial, the casket was open. Normally, I'm not sure what those words mean. Why would embalmers routinely use the strongest embalming fluid? I recently had an embalmer tell me he liked a more rigid texture to the body. Is this normal? Yes. Embalmers find what works best for them, the results that they find to be the best. And when you go into embalm, you may not know that the family has an extended timeline. Oh, well, we don't plan on doing this for 3 weeks. That would have been good to know before embalming. So embalmers are taking stronger stances on the fluids they use and how aggressive they're embalming in terms of the stronger fluid, in terms of just preserving for as long as they can, because we are having more and more and more people requesting to wait weeks before, and they expect and plan that they're going to have an open casket. So we have to kind of take a more aggressive approach to embalming. Ooh, you get to exhume a body today. Good luck. Straightened her hair, but it was big and fluffy. Could they not straighten it? They might not be skilled at hair, honestly. It's hard to say. Maybe the family did not convey how they wanted her hair. I think it's easy that everybody says, oh, they didn't do a good job or they didn't whatever, but maybe it was never conveyed. Maybe the funeral director and embalmer didn't have a lot to go with. Maybe they didn't get pictures about the person. Maybe they didn't, so it's not always the embalmer's fault. Everybody jumps to that as being the main thing, but if we didn't have a picture, how would you know how to do hair for a person? That's also my stance on it. Can you look up permission or freeze drying as in your view? So are you talking about the freeze drying where then they vibrate them and they shatter them into a whole bunch of little pieces? I have never had a family tip me. I've had families like send flowers, bring me cookies, cards, things like that. Some companies have a no tipping policy. You cannot receive tips from a family. But then there's other places, if you get into big cities where it's unions and things for the vault companies and for drivers, they need to be tipped, not by the family, even just by the funeral home. And it's just part of what's charged to the family. What's your opinion on incorrupt bodies? So a lot of those bodies, and you can see this information anywhere, those are rubber masks, or they're created like a silicone type mask. That's not the actual person's face. So that's not real. What fluid companies do I use? Oh, Carol, good luck on your surgery. I really like Champion, but there are different fluids from different companies that I like. There's maybe one type from Frigid, there's maybe one type from Dodge, so it just depends on the company. It's not just one straight. If I had to go to one fluid company only, it would probably be Champion. That's who I learned using long ago, and I really like the results. Can you have your cremated remains in whatever you want? Sure thing. No, I am only licensed in Michigan, and you have to be licensed per state. When my mom died, I picked out a nice casket which had a knob on the front of it, not on the end. I didn't ask what this was for. Can you explain? Warwick, was it a metal or was it a wooden casket? No, I would never donate my body to a mortuary school. And it's not against the morticians. I mean, it's up to my family, but I don't think there's not one right here that I would be able to donate to anyway. So, hold on, my leg's asleep. Oh, doing cemetery, grave visitations, doing cemetery visits on YouTube. I would love to see information on that burial. Can you send me an email on it? That would be cool. Oh, thanks, Hannah. My stepfather passed. Oh, that was the dirty nails. All right, we did that one. Yay, I love when we get questions answered. Oh, nice. That's cool, Leo. That's so funny. So a metal casket, that could have been the lock that was on the front. Some caskets are now, instead of the lock on the end, they're putting the locks on the front under little caps. So it could have it's more than likely the lock, depending. Oh, and then I think the rest of these right now are a lot of questions for vaults. And so we will let Josh answer those when we have him around. Do you put shoes on the deceased if the family brings them? And if a family asks, I tell them, this is your choice if you want to bring them or not. Is there an average time it takes to embalm, or does it change from one deceased to another? Or does it depend on the embalmer? Yes, it definitely depends on the embalmer. But once you get in a routine, it's almost like it's kind of like a dance where you pick this up, you do this, you set this down here, you do this, you know where things are. If you're in a new embalming room though, man, it is tough to, the first time you got to navigate, you got to find where stuff is. It's like going into someone else's kitchen and cooking a meal. If you were in your kitchen cooking the same meal that required, multiple pots, multiple things, multiple pantry items, it's going to take you a little bit of time to find where all those things are. But or at your own home is going to be pretty fast. Going to another person's kitchen, you can logically open a drawer and think something's going to be in that drawer, and it might be there, but it might not, because it's someone else's logic. What I've also found is how a man organizes something versus a woman is going to be very different too. That in itself is a weird component of how a prep room is laid out. Honestly, it's weird. Oh my gosh, Ken. What? Who? What? That is freaking wild. Like, I don't think anybody knows, like, within the business. And it sounds stupid. You guys may think I'm just fibbing, but I really don't think any funeral directors really know who I am. I still think that I know at this point many people do, but there's so many people who don't know who I am within the business still, which is odd. My mom passed away in April. Does a medical examiner take pictures of everyone that gets autopsies or just murder victims? If so, do I have rights to those? Do you have the full medical examiner report? Because yes, you can request the full report. It's going to have a lot more information that you've ever wanted to know about your mom. But yes, so typically photos, you're going to have to see what they have and if they will allow you to have those. I'm not sure on photos. I've never had a family honestly ask for autopsy photos before. There might be, if it's a crime, the police may have photos in theirs, in their records that you could request as well. Leo, I don't know about that. That's very humbling to me. Very, very humbling. Have you seen any unique birthmarks? I really haven't. That's so funny. I don't know if I've noticed any major aside from some maybe port wine stains on a face, which just like any defining marking on a person, freckles, port wine stains, moles, even whiskers, like that have been there for a long time on a woman. We don't want to shave them off. We don't want to cover those up if we have to cosmetize. If the person needs extensive cosmetics, it's how do we recreate this look? How do we recreate freckles? How do we recreate the birthmark if you do have to do a heavy cosmetic for some reason? But otherwise, you want that to show through and you want it to be natural because that is part of who they are and who they were to everybody. I don't think there's been any crazy wild birthmarks. What happens if a person doesn't have a plot, but the family wants them buried? The family has to go acquire a burial space somewhere. They go and they purchase it and they get it all set up where they want. Happy fall break. Hey, Jack Packer. What do you think of the Deborah Collier and the family from Merced? I'm not sure what that is. I'll have to look it up. If the family doesn't want viewing because there is extensive damage and they don't want you to try to repair the damage, then the person can be embalmed. We can do what we can. I have put heads into plastic bags and just sealed that off, covered with a blanket, pillow, allowed the family to view the body, just not the head. There's a lot of different things that can be done. Any funny tattoos that made you laugh? I think me and the boys did a whole beer episode on tattoos too. But had a gentleman had here kitty, I can't remember if it was here kitty kitty, but here kitty above his genitals. That always makes me giggle. It's just kind of funny. We went to see Endora from Bewitched Grave recently. Some of the graves nearby were leaking down the front. Is that because the person or people were not embalmed? No, oftentimes mausoleums require that someone is embalmed. So embalming does not preserve someone forever. It's temporary. So they're going to decompose and it could happen very quickly, even embalmed. I'm still doing freelance, and the ebb and flow of some of the trade embalming and all of that, it just kind of comes and goes depending on demand and employees at other funeral homes. A lot of funeral homes, I'm talking a lot, are hiring right now. There is a serious lack of people who want to actually move to where jobs are, and people coming out of the schools that are near where all the jobs are. I could name so many, dozens upon dozens upon dozens of people that are hiring right now. I can't tell you what happens after death because I haven't been there. Are you going hunting for mushrooms? No mushroom hunting. Nope. Have you ever been to Arlington? Yes, it's been many years. I was younger when I went, and I'd like to go back now and do video there and such, but it'll be quite a thing to get set up for me to go do. My sister passed away and she had a thick hair growth on her chin. They shaved her chin, but you could see like it. She always shaved it very close. Thank you for sharing that. Do you have to be in mortuary school to get a job at a funeral home? No. There are so many jobs that you can work as a career for your whole life in a funeral home. You don't have to be a licensed funeral director. A lot of them. I have several videos on positions in a funeral home, jobs you can have in a funeral home without being licensed. I don't want you to go to mortuary school if you've never worked in a funeral home, if you haven't job shadowed, if you haven't seen what we actually do in this position. Because I would say 80% of what we do, you do not see as a consumer. So you need to see that part in order to know if this is a job for you. Joette, just like any other burial, any embalming question, anything, there is no timeline on burying and knowing when someone is going to decompose. Has anyone made you cry? I mean, like a funeral? I've had some moments. What did I do the other day? Was it a song? Something happened. I think it was during arrangements the other day, and I just got a bit choked up with a family. I don't often cry at work though. No, not because of working with the families or anything like that. I do not often. It sounds kind of cold, but I just don't. I'll have moments once in a while that are a bit sad, but I can't connect with every death like that, or else you can't do your job and you can't have a healthy life if you do that. You cannot get involved in every death to that capacity. Choose to not be embalmed and only a 2-hour visitation for cost reasons. I wonder, will they still do hair and makeup? Well, first you need to make sure that funeral home will allow, you need to find a funeral home that'll allow that. Many will not allow a viewing without being embalmed. But yes, they will still do your hair and makeup and dress you for a private viewing or for public if they allow it. No cat poop coffee. That was a one-time thing just to try it out because it was silly and fun. How do you get over having to deal with a baby or young child who died? Yeah, from a funeral director standpoint, I don't linger on them, so there's no getting over it. Do you have dreams of bodies you've done? Never. The only dreams I have about work are maybe not having someone ready on time. I have that dream a lot where I'm trying to get someone dressed and the family's already there and they're just not ready for the funeral, or I have the wrong car, or just something like that. It's like just silly things. Jacob, I would just call the medical examiner's office and find out. There may be a form that you have to fill out, or you may just be able to request it. All right, guys, I am going to wind down. I've gotten, I think, through a chunk of my questions that I had from previous. Hey, Josh. Josh just got back here a little bit ago. We both are off work today, which is nice. And so we're just kind of taking a breath, getting some things done. And he was off at the gym. So I thought I'd have him pop on if he was in the house, but I think he's outside. So thank you guys. Send me emails, Kari@KariTheMortician.com if you have questions about things. So, let's do a survey poll. Hold on. Start a poll. So I've talked to you guys. Interment be live or recorded? So I am disinterring my dog. All right, ask my community. Oh, we don't want this one. All right, Sunday. this Sunday, I'm disinterring my dog. My parents are building where he is buried at their home, and we have to move him because of the footings for the building. So we're disinterring my puppy that I buried 3-4 years ago. And of course, I'm going to take video and everything. Wondering though, should I do it live? It'll be a lot longer, and I'll just let the video run on the whole process. Or should I just record and edit it so you can see a more concise version of it later? Let me know what you think. We are super excited just for the educational side of it, seeing what he looks like after this much time. I am not scared to share feelings about any of it. You guys have seen me cry. You've seen all of it. After he died, I did a video about him dying and shared some pictures of us burying him. So I'm not worried about you guys seeing or not sharing. I think it's kind of therapeutic for me to share some of that with you guys and to talk it out loud. And it's an odd situation for sure. So I can only imagine how people who are disinterring their actual human in their life is going to feel. But someone asked, are you in Baltimore yet? I'm not coming. My doctors locked me down that I shouldn't travel. I had a concussion a couple weeks ago and still having some residual effects from that. So they want me to stay put. So here I am, very sad still. So I'm going to have to plan some trips, I think, to go see some of the people that I didn't get to see with going to Baltimore, like Melissa and John and everybody. And I was going to see Joelle there. Very sad, but all right, guys. Thank you. Yeah. Did Josh shoot a deer yet? Yes, he got one opening day, a really nice buck, an 8-point. And I think it was like the second biggest one at the processing place he took it to that day. So he got a really good mature buck. He only shoots them if they are mature. And so he'll be hunting a lot the next few weeks. So I'll see him later. I'll see you in January because he loves hunting. But we will eat everything that he got. So when you go check out the aquarium, I'll pay. In Baltimore? I wish I could go. Well, thank you guys. Yep, we're going to go do some stuff around his house today and just enjoy the day. So thank you guys. I'll see you soon. Bye.